The year is 613 CE. An elderly queen, once the most powerful woman in Europe, is tied to wild horses and torn apart. Queen Brunhild's execution wasn't random cruelty. It was the climax of a 50-year blood feud between two queens that reshaped the Frankish kingdom. But here's what makes this story matter. While everyone watched the royal drama, new political forces were quietly emerging, forces that would eventually produce Charlemagne and reshape Europe. To understand how we got here, meet two Visigothic princesses, Brunhild and her sister Galswinthe. Both married Merovingian kings. The Merovingians were the Frankish dynasty ruling from around 450 CE, named after their legendary founder Meroving. Brunhild married King Sigebert. Galswinthe married his brother Chilperic. But Chilperic already had a powerful mistress, Fredegunde, a servant who had risen to become his favorite consort. Fredegunde wanted Galswinthe eliminated. She arranged the princess's murder. Brunhild swore vengeance for her sister's death. This wasn't impulsive rage. It was a calculated blood oath that would drive Frankish politics for 5 decades. 2 women, 2 factions, and an entire kingdom caught between them. The violence that followed wasn't random medieval brutality. Every assassination served a strategic purpose. Brunhild's husband Sigebert made war on Chilperic. He was winning. So Fredegunde hired assassins. 2 men with poisoned knives struck Sigebert down in 575. Brunhild, now a widow, made a desperate move. She married Meroving, the son of her enemy Chilperic. Think about that. She married into the family that killed her husband, but the gambit failed. Meroving later committed suicide. Then Chilperic himself was assassinated in 584. Both women ended up ruling, Fredegunde through her young son, Brunhild in her own right, commanding armies and making policy. But while everyone watched the royal bloodbath, something else was happening beneath the surface. The Frankish kingdom was fracturing along regional lines. 2 distinct sub-realms emerged, Austrasia and Neustria. Austrasia covered the Rhine regions, Belgium, parts of Holland, and northeastern France, more Germanic, oriented toward the frontier. Neustria centered on Paris and the Seine region, the Romanized heartland of what would become France. These weren't just geographic divisions. Each region developed its own aristocracy, its own interests, its own political culture. Austrasia's nobles looked east toward Germanic lands. Neustria's elite identified with Roman traditions. The civil wars between Fredegunde and Brunhild reinforced these divisions. Each queen drew support from different regional factions. The longer they fought, the more distinct Austrasia and Neustria became. Regional identity hardened into political reality, and this matters enormously for what comes next. In 613, Clothar II, Fredegunde's son, finally captured the aged Brunhild. Her execution by wild horses ended the 50-year feud, but it also symbolized something larger, the brutal personal nature of Merovingian politics. The dynasty would limp on for another 150 years. Historians call the later Merovingians the do-nothing kings. Real power shifted to officials called mayors of the palace. These mayors managed the kingdom while kings became figureheads. And the most powerful mayors came from Austrasia. Here's the connection that transforms this from royal gossip into world history. The Carolingians were an Austrasian family. They rose through the mayor of the palace position. Generation by generation, they accumulated power while Merovingian kings faded into irrelevance. The regional identity that crystallized during the Fredegunde-Brunhild feud created the political base for dynasty replacement. Austrasia's distinct aristocracy backed the Carolingians. By 751, they simply took the crown. The name Carolingian comes from Charlemagne, Carolus Magnus in Latin, crowned emperor in 800. So what does a 1400-year-old feud teach us about how power actually works? First, pattern recognition. Personal vendettas shaping entire kingdoms appears throughout pre-modern history. from ancient Rome to Renaissance Italy. When you see medieval violence, ask, what's the strategic logic? Second, understanding Charlemagne. He didn't emerge from nowhere. He came from Austrasia's distinct political culture, built over generations while Merovingians self-destructed. The Carolingian Empire has Austrasian DNA. Third, reading medieval sources. Gregory of Tours documented much of this feud before his death in 594. He had biases, favorites, and blind spots. Knowing the political context helps you read him critically. When studying any medieval dynasty, ask this question: what regional power bases existed and who controlled them? The Fredegunde-Brunhild feud looks like a soap opera. Two queens, assassinations, wild horses, but beneath the drama, structural forces were reshaping Europe, regional identities solidified, power bases formed, a new dynasty positioned itself. The Merovingians destroyed themselves through family violence. The Carolingians built something from the wreckage. And Charlemagne's empire, the foundation of medieval Europe, grew from seeds planted during 50 years of royal bloodshed.